Tonight, we invite you to settle in, to let go of the day's concerns, and to allow your mind to drift back in time. There is nothing for you to do now but to breathe and to listen. Let the weight of your body grow heavy, comfortable, as we journey together into a world lit only by candle and moon. Our story tonight is one of shadows and whispers, of secrets kept and identities shed like a heavy cloak. We are traveling to the medieval world, a time of grand castles and sweeping armies, of faith and of famine. But we will not be walking the grand halls of kings, nor will we be marching with knights to the clamour of trumpets. Instead, we will be treading softly down the quiet, forgotten corridors of history, following in the footsteps of those who were never meant to be seen. Tonight we explore the life of a medieval spy. Imagine a world where a misplaced word could unravel a kingdom, where a furtive glance could seal a man's fate. This was a life lived in the margins, in the quiet spaces between the great events. It was a life of immense solitude, of constant, quiet observation. A life where the most powerful weapon was not a sword, but a secret. If you enjoy these journeys into the past, I'd really appreciate a quick like, or even a subscribe. It helps our small community of quiet history lovers grow more than you know. I'm always curious where you all are listening from, so feel free to drop a comment with your location and what time it is there. It's fascinating to see our global community connecting through these stories. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Imagine yourself in a small, cramped room tucked away in the upper reaches of a monastery scriptorium. The air here is thick with the scent of aging parchment, beeswax, and the faint, sweet smell of fermented berries used for ink. It is a smell of stillness, of hours and days and years bleeding into one another. Your world is defined by the steady, rhythmic scratch of a quill against vellum. It is a sound that has become the metronome of your existence. You are a scribe, not a high-ranking monk illuminating glorious manuscripts for a king, but a lay copyist, hired for your steady hand and your quiet disposition. Your name is Thomas, or perhaps Jean, or William. The name itself is unimportant. It is a simple, common name, one that blends easily into the tapestry of the world outside. Your anonymity is, in its own way, a form of protection. Your days are governed by the sun and the church bells. You rise before dawn, the stone floor cold beneath your bare feet. You dress in simple, coarse-spun wool, its texture a familiar roughness against your skin. You break your fast with a small piece of hard bread and a cup of watered-down ale, the taste dull and unchanging. Then, you make your way to the scriptorium, your footsteps echoing softly in the hallowed silence of the cloister. The master of the scriptorium, a stern-faced monk named Brother Anselm, inspects your work with a critical eye. He does not speak often, and when he does, his voice is a low rumble, like stones shifting in a dry riverbed. He values precision above all else. A misplaced dot, a smudged letter, an uneven margin. These are the grave sins of your profession. And so, you have cultivated a profound patience. You have learned to slow your breathing, to still the tremor in your hand, to make your entire being an instrument of careful, deliberate creation. You sit at your slanted wooden desk, the light from a high, narrow window falling across your work. For hours, you copy. You replicate legal documents for the local lord, property deeds for the abbey, letters of trade for a wealthy merchant in the nearby town. The words flow through you, from the original manuscript to your fresh parchment, but you have trained yourself to see them only as shapes, as patterns to be duplicated. To become too interested in the content was a distraction. It was not your place to understand the intricacies of a land dispute or the financial arrangements of a wool merchant. Your purpose was to be a conduit, silent and flawless. But you are not a machine, you are human. And as your eyes trace the elegant Latin script, you cannot help but absorb fragments of information. You learn which lord is indebted to another. You see the subtle shifts in allegiance recorded in amended charters. You notice the nervous, hurried handwriting in a letter from a merchant whose shipments are late. And you can almost feel his anxiety bleed through the ink. You are a silent witness to the subtle currents of power that flow through your small corner of the world. And you remember everything. Your mind, honed by years of memorizing saints' lives and liturgical calendars, has become a vast, unwritten ledger of these quiet details. You rarely leave the confines of the abbey. Your life is a loop of sleeping, eating, and writing. But on occasion, Brother Anselm sends you into the town on an errand, perhaps to purchase a new supply of goose quills, or to deliver a finished document to the wool merchant's guild hall. These journeys are a sensory shock. The quiet, ordered world of the monastery gives way to the chaotic thrum of the town square. The air, instead of smelling of ink and old paper, is thick with the scent of damp earth, of livestock, of wood smoke, and of unwashed bodies. The gentle scratching of your quill is replaced by the cacophony of vendors hawking their wares, the clang of a blacksmith's hammer, the rumble of cartwheels on cobblestones, and the murmur of a dozen different conversations at once. You keep your head down, your eyes averted. You are a man of the cloister, and the town is a bewildering place, but you are also an observer. It is your nature. You notice the furtive exchange of coins between a city guard and a beggar who seems too well fed. You hear the snippets of conversation from merchants in the tavern, their voices low as they discuss the king's new tax, their words laced with a frustration they would never dare to show the royal tax collector. You see the foreign sailors at the docks, their clothes and their language marking them as men from Flanders or Genoa. You do not understand their words, but you study their faces, their gestures, the way they watch the local townsfolk with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. It is on one of these errands that your life begins to change, not with a sudden event, but with a quiet observation. You are in the Guildhall, waiting for the merchant to sign a receipt for the documents you have delivered. As you stand by the heavy oak door, you notice a man standing in the shadows of the far corner of the room. He is not a merchant. His clothes are well made, but plain, with no sigil or mark of a guild. He is not a clerk or a servant. He simply stands and watches, his gaze sweeping across the room, lingering for a moment on each person, including you. His eyes are intelligent, patient, and unsettlingly perceptive. You feel, for a fleeting moment, as though he is not just looking at you, but reading you, as if you were one of the parchments on your desk. You lower your gaze, your heart beating a little faster. You collect your signed receipt from the merchant's clerk and turn to leave. As you walk back through the bustling market, you have the distinct feeling that you are being followed. You do not dare to look back. To do so would be to acknowledge the presence behind you, to show fear or curiosity. Instead, you focus on the familiar path, on the rhythm of your own footsteps. You lengthen your stride slightly, your mind racing. Who was that man? Why would he be watching you? The questions are a discordant note in the predictable symphony of your life. A few weeks pass. The memory of the man in the Guildhall begins to fade, receding into the back of your mind like a half-remembered dream. Your life returns to its normal rhythm. The scratching of the quill, the tolling of the bells, the stern gaze of Brother Anselm. You copy a letter from the abbot to a bishop in a neighbouring diocese. The letter is filled with the usual pleasantries and discussions of ecclesiastical matters. But as you are forming the familiar Latin words, you notice something unusual. Within one of the psalms quoted by the abbot, certain letters seem to be slightly, almost imperceptibly, larger than the others. It is a detail so minor that 99 out of 100 scribes would have missed it, or dismissed it as a slip of the pen. But you, with your eye for precision, you see it. You pause, your quill hovering over the vellum. You look back over the line of text. The letters are IVNTVS. You recognize it as part of a Latin phrase, inventus est, he has been found. It seems like a simple grammatical error, an extra letter added. But the placement is too deliberate. Your mind, trained to see patterns, begins to work. You look back at the rest of the text, your eyes scanning for other subtle imperfections. You find none. It is just this one small anomaly, a whisper in a sea of ink. You feel a prickle of unease. Without a conscious thought, you correct the error in your copy, making the letters uniform, just as Brother Anselm would expect. But you do not forget what you saw. You commit the letters, and their position in the text, to your perfect memory. The next day, as you are sweeping the floor of the scriptorium after the evening meal, Brother Anselm approaches you. This is unusual. He rarely interacts with you outside of your work. He tells you that the abbot himself has requested to see you. A cold knot of anxiety forms in your stomach. What could the abbot possibly want with a humble scribe? Have you made some terrible error? Did you somehow betray your knowledge of the hidden message? You follow Brother Anselm through the cold, silent corridors of the monastery. Your soft leather shoes make no sound on the worn flagstones. The only light comes from the occasional tallow candle sputtering in a wall sconce, casting long dancing shadows that seem to writhe and twist like living things. You are led not to the abbot's grand office, but to a small private chapel, rarely used. The abbot is there, a man whose face you have only ever seen from a distance during Mass. He is older, his face a roadmap of wrinkles, but his eyes are sharp and clear. With him is another man. It is the man you saw in the Guildhall. Your heart sinks. You are trapped. The chapel door closes behind you with a soft, final thud. The air is cold and smells of stone and old incense. The two men look at you in silence. It is a silence that stretches on, designed to unnerve you, to make you speak first. But you have been trained in silence. You stand before them, your hands clasped in front of you, your gaze respectfully lowered. You wait. Finally, the abbot speaks. His voice is smoother than Brother Anselm's, but it carries an unmistakable authority. You are the scribe, the one they call Thomas. You nod. I am, your grace. Brother Anselm tells me your work is without flaw, the abbot continues. He says you have a remarkable memory and a gift for observation. You do not know how to respond. You simply bow your head slightly. The other man steps forward. He moves with a quiet confidence that is neither that of a priest nor a nobleman. Yesterday, he says, his voice a low, even tenor, you copied a letter from His Grace the Abbot to the Bishop of Montfort. It is a statement, not a question. I did, you reply, your own voice barely a whisper. In that letter, the man continues, his eyes fixed on your face, you found something, an error, a single misplaced word hidden within a psalm. The blood drains from your face, you know, with a chilling certainty that this is a test. Your life hangs on your next words. To admit what you saw is to admit that you are more than just a simple scribe. To deny it is to prove yourself unobservant and perhaps useless to them. You take a slow, steadying breath. There was an irregularity in the text, sir. I assumed it was a slip of the abbot's pen. I corrected it in my copy to maintain the integrity of the document. A faint smile touches the corners of the man's mouth. You did not correct it. You omitted it. You saw the word inventus and you knew it did not belong. But you said nothing. You simply erased it and remembered it. Why? You choose your words with the same care you would use to place a letter on a page. It is not my place to question the abbot's writing, nor to spread tales of potential errors. My duty is to produce a clean and accurate copy. What I see, I hold in confidence. It is the way of the scriptorium. The abbot and the stranger exchange a look. It is a look of confirmation, of a successful diagnosis. The stranger turns his full attention back to you. Your name is not Thomas, he says, his voice dropping even lower. Your name is whatever we say it is. Your life as a scribe, the simple, predictable life you have always known. That life is over. You have skills that the king and the church have need of. Not your hand but your eyes, your memory, your silence, your ability to stand in a room and become part of the walls. He steps closer, and you can smell the faint scent of leather and road dust on his clothes. We have been watching you for a long time. We saw you in the market. We know you speak the common tongue and have a rudimentary understanding of the Norman French spoken by the nobility. Learned from the documents you copy. We know you can read and write Latin, a skill few possess. We know that you are invisible, and that is a priceless commodity. He gestures to the altar, where a single candle burns, its flame unwavering in the still air. A new path is being offered to you. It is not a path of glory. There will be no songs written of your deeds. Your name, your true name, will be forgotten. You will serve in the shadows to protect the light. You will trade the quiet safety of this monastery for a life of constant vigilance. You will learn to listen to conversations you are not meant to hear, to read messages that are not meant to be seen, to travel roads that are not on any map. The abbot then speaks, his voice taking on a solemn pastoral tone. The enemies of our kingdom and of our faith do not always carry swords. They carry whispers, lies, and secrets. To fight them, we must have soldiers who can move in their world. We need men who can hear those whispers, who can unravel those lies, who can steal those secrets for the good of all. You stand there, in the cold, silent chapel, the words washing over you. It is not a choice, not really. To refuse would be to admit you are a liability, a man who knows a secret he should not. And you understand, with a clarity that is both terrifying and absolute, what happens to liabilities. The stranger holds out a small leather-bound book. It is blank. Your old life is a finished manuscript, he says softly. It will be stored away and forgotten. Today you begin a new book. The pages are empty, and you will be the only one who ever reads it. And so you take the book. Its leather cover is smooth and cool beneath your trembling fingers. In the flickering candlelight of the secluded chapel, with the scent of old stone and fading incense filling your lungs, you take a quiet oath. It is not a grand public ceremony, but a whispered promise in the dark, a promise of loyalty, of silence, of a life to be lived in the service of unseen masters. You are no longer Thomas the scribe, you are a shadow, and your first mission, a simple coded message tucked within the pages of the blank book, is waiting. It tells you to travel to a small port town 2 days' ride from here, to find a tavern called the Salty Dog, and to ask the innkeeper if he has any news of the recent herring catch. The words seem innocuous, but you know that they are the key to a door you have just unlocked. A door that leads away from the rhythmic scratching of the quill and into a world of quiet, dangerous intrigue. The weight of the book in your hand feels heavier than any manuscript you have ever carried. It is the weight of your new life. A life of secrets and silence. A life destined to be unwritten, unknown, and unheard, save for the whispers it leaves behind in the annals of boring history. The journey from the Abbey is a blur of greens and greys. You are given a horse, a creature far more robust than the gentle donkeys the monastery used for carrying supplies. Its gait is strong and steady, and the rhythmic clopping of its hooves on the dirt road becomes a new metronome, replacing the familiar scratch of the quill. You ride alongside the man who recruited you. He calls himself Silas, though you know with absolute certainty that it is not his real name. He speaks little, and when he does, his words are practical, instructive. He points out landmarks not by their local names, but by their strategic value. A defensible ridge, a stream that offers clean water, a forest thick enough to hide a dozen men. You are learning to see the world not as a landscape, but as a map of advantages and vulnerabilities. After 2 days of riding, you arrive at the port town. It is larger and louder than the market town near your former home. The air is heavy with the sharp, briny scent of the sea, a smell so foreign and pervasive that it feels like you are breathing a different element. It coats your tongue and clings to your woolen clothes. The sounds are different too. The cries of gulls, the rhythmic creaking of ship masts swaying in the harbour, the distant crash of waves against a stone jetty, and the shouts of sailors in languages you have never heard before. It is a world of constant motion, a stark contrast to the hallowed stillness you have known your entire life. Silas leads you through the winding, narrow streets, your horses navigating carefully around piles of fishing nets and barrels of salted fish. You reach a tavern, its wooden sign, bleached and warped by the sea air, depicting a crudely painted fish with a crown. This is not the Salty Dog. Silas dismounts and hands you a small, heavy purse of coins. Your training begins here, he says, his voice a low murmur that is easily lost in the noise of the street. Your name is no longer Thomas. From this moment, you will begin to learn how to be Arnaud of Lisieux. You are a junior agent for a wool merchant, sent here to observe the port, to learn the patterns of the ships, the cost of goods, the moods of the sailors. You are not a spy. You are a businessman's apprentice. Your goal is not to be invisible, but to be unremarkable. To be seen, but not noticed. He tells you to find lodging, to eat in the common room, to listen more than you speak. He instructs you to spend your days at the docks, watching. He gives you a list of things to memorize, the types of ships, the flags they fly, the typical cargo they carry. Then, he turns and leads his horse away, disappearing into the crowd without a backward glance. You are left standing alone in the street, the purse of coins feeling like a lead weight in your hand, the noise of the port town crashing over you. This is your first test, not of espionage, but of simple existence in an alien world. You spend the next several weeks in that town. You find a room in a modest inn. It is small and drafty, and the mattress is stuffed with lumpy straw, but it is yours. Each morning you walk down to the harbour. You sit on a wooden crate, your back against a stone wall, and you watch. At first it is a chaos of sensation, but slowly, guided by the instructions Silas gave you, you begin to see the patterns. You learn to distinguish a Genoese carrack from a Flemish cog. You learn the tides, the rhythm of loading and unloading. You listen to the dock workers, their conversations a mix of local gossip and practical information about the ships. You learn to be Arnaud. You buy clothes that fit the part, sturdy leather boots, a woolen tunic of a more fashionable cut than your scribe's robe, a simple cloak to ward off the sea spray. You practice walking with a different gait, not the soft, gliding step of a man used to silent cloisters, but the more grounded, confident stride of a man of commerce. In the evenings, in the privacy of your small room, you practice a new signature, Arnaud, over and over again on a spare piece of parchment, until the unfamiliar loops and swirls feel like your own. You are not just wearing a costume, you are building a person from the ground up. Silas had told you that a good disguise is not about the clothes you wear, but the history you inhabit. So you invent a history for Arnaud. You imagine his childhood in Lisieux, a town known for its textiles. You imagine his stern but fair father, a weaver. You imagine his desire to make his own way in the world, to move from the making of cloth to the more profitable trading of it. These are not just facts to be memorized. They are memories you must feel. When another merchant in the tavern asks you about your home, you must be able to speak of the way the sun hits the cathedral in Lisieux in the early morning, of the specific taste of the local cheese. You must have an answer for every question, an anecdote for every occasion. The lie must be more real to you than the truth. One evening, a month into your new life, Silas appears in the common room of your inn as if from thin air. He sits at your table, orders a cup of wine, and begins to speak to you as if you are an old acquaintance. He asks you about the ships you have seen. You recite the details you have memorized. 3 cogs from Bruges in the last week, carrying wool and Finnish cloth. A carrack from Genoa, laden with alum and spices. It was heavily guarded. A small fleet of local fishing vessels. Their catch has been poor. You speak in the persona of Arno, your voice steady, your observations focused on the commercial implications. Silas listens without expression. When you are finished, he nods slowly. You see the ships, he says, but you do not yet see the men. The Genoese captain, did you notice the new scar above his left eye? Did you hear the whispers that he got it in a tavern brawl in Southampton a month ago? The Flemish merchants, did you observe that they meet with a representative from the Weavers' Guild not in the guild hall, but in the back room of a bakery? Did you notice that the baker's wife is the cousin of a man who was once arrested for smuggling? His questions open up a new layer of observation. You realize that you have only been seeing the surface, the text of the world. He is teaching you to see the subtext, the hidden meanings, the invisible threads that connect people and events. He is training you to move from being a copyist to being an interpreter. Your training now enters a new phase. Silas begins to actively shape your disguise. He provides you with samples of wool. You spend hours handling them, learning to distinguish the fine fleece of an English sheep from the coarser wool of the local flocks. You learn the vocabulary of the trade, words like staple, greasy, scouring. You learn about the dyes, the mordants, the weaving techniques. Your mind, once filled with Latin verse and the lives of saints, now becomes a repository for the mundane, practical knowledge of a wool merchant. It is a slow, methodical process, a gradual replacement of one reality with another. Silas also refines your physical presence. He makes you walk across the room, again and again. Too quiet, he would say. You still walk like a man who is afraid of making the floorboards creak. A merchant is not afraid of being heard. He wants to be noticed, but not too much. Your footsteps should have weight, purpose. He corrects your posture. Stop hunching over your food as if it were a manuscript. Arnaud is a young man on the rise. He sits straight. He looks people in the eye, but not for too long. His gaze is confident, but not challenging. He teaches you the art of conversation, not as a scribe who listens, but as a merchant who probes. He creates scenarios for you. A man at the next table is complaining about the high cost of shipping. How do you join the conversation? How do you turn his complaint into an opportunity to learn who controls the port fees? You learn to ask questions that do not sound like questions, to offer opinions that invite revealing responses. You are learning to use language not as a tool for recording information, but as a key to unlock it from the minds of others. This transformation is not without its internal struggles. In the quiet of your room at night, with the distant sound of the sea as your only companion, the old you, the scribe, sometimes re-emerges. You feel a profound sense of loss for the simple, ordered life you once knew. The silence of the scriptorium, the comforting rhythm of the church bells, the certainty of your place in the world. All of it is gone, replaced by a life of calculated pretense. You are a ghost inhabiting another man's skin. The solitude of the scribe was one of peace and contemplation. The solitude of the spy is one of isolation. You are surrounded by people, yet you are utterly alone, for no one can ever know who you truly are. One day, Silas provides you with a set of new clothes, finer than the ones you have been wearing. The wool is softer, the cut more elegant. He gives you a new, heavier purse and a letter of introduction, sealed with the crest of a prominent Parisian merchant. The letter identifies you as Arnaud, an agent sent to procure a large quantity of English wool, which is known to be the finest in the world. You have learned enough here, Silas says. You have become Arnaud, the apprentice. Now you will become Arnaud, the trusted agent. Your next destination is Calais. It is a city held by the English, a gateway for their wool trade. You will go there not as an observer on the docks, But as a participant in the market, you will establish yourself. You will make contacts. You will become a part of the city's commercial life. You will learn the names of the powerful merchants, the English officials who run the port, the soldiers in the garrison. You will simply be a French merchant going about his business. He does not tell you what your ultimate mission in Calais will be. He does not need to. You understand that this is the final stage of your training. You are not just putting on a disguise for a single task. You are being asked to live it, to breathe it, to make it your reality for months, perhaps even years. You are to build a life so solid, so believable, that no one would ever think to look beneath its surface. As you pack your few belongings, you look at your reflection in the small, polished metal disc that serves as a mirror. The face that looks back at you is no longer the pale, indoor face of a scribe. The sun and the sea spray have weathered it. Your hands, once soft and ink-stained, are now rougher, calloused from handling the ropes of a small boat you learned to sail. Your eyes, once accustomed to focusing on the minute details of a letter, now have a different quality. They are calmer, more watchful, constantly scanning, assessing, interpreting. The transformation is more than just clothes and a backstory. It is a fundamental shift in your being. The quill has been replaced by the lie, and the parchment has been replaced by the world itself. You are the author of this new man, Arnaud, and your survival depends on the story you write for him. Every single day, you are ready to sail for Calais, to step onto a much larger stage. Your identity, a carefully crafted shield. Your purpose, a secret buried so deep within you that even you can sometimes forget it is there. And in that forgetting, you find a strange, quiet comfort. The comfort of a well-told story. A story that protects you from the world and from yourself. The crossing of the channel is uneventful. A slow, rolling journey over a sea the color of slate. You spend the voyage huddled in your cloak, not from the cold, but as a way of maintaining your solitude, your anonymity. The other passengers are merchants and pilgrims, their chatter a low hum against the backdrop of creaking timbers and the snap of the sail in the wind. You are Arnaud, the wool merchant's agent, and this journey is simply a business expense, a necessary inconvenience. You project an air of mild impatience, of a man whose mind is on ledgers and profits, not on the vast grey emptiness of the sea. Calais rises from the coastline not as a welcoming sight, but as a fortress. Its stone walls are high and imposing, scarred by old battles and patched with newer, paler stone. English flags, stark red and white against the grey sky, whip in the wind from the tops of the towers. This is not the bustling, slightly chaotic port you left behind. This is a military outpost, a city under occupation. The air itself feels different, more disciplined, laced with the tension of a place that is perpetually on guard. Disembarking, you feel the immediate shift. The guards at the gate are English. They speak a language you have been studying in secret, a tongue that feels thick and clumsy on your own tongue. You present your letter of introduction, your face a mask of neutral politeness. The guard, a large man with a face like a slab of beef, inspects the parchment. He looks at the Parisian seal, then at you, his eyes lingering for a moment too long. It is a look of casual suspicion, the default expression of a conqueror towards the conquered. He waves you through with a grunt. You do not react. You simply nod your thanks and walk into the city, your back straight, your pace measured. You are just a merchant. You have nothing to hide. You repeat this to yourself, a silent litany, a prayer to the god of deception you now serve. The city within the walls is a strange hybrid. The architecture is French, narrow streets, tall houses with steep roofs, but the atmosphere is English. You hear the sharp commands of soldiers in the street, see them patrolling the ramparts. The taverns are filled with their loud laughter and their drinking songs. The local French-speaking population moves with a quiet resentment, a subtle deference that speaks of years of living under foreign rule. This is the water you must learn to swim in, a sea of unspoken allegiances and hidden frictions. Your first task is the most mundane, and therefore the most important. You must build a life here, not a temporary camp, but a convincing facsimile of a permanent existence. You spend a week simply walking, observing, allowing the city to imprint itself upon your mind. You learn the streets, the shortcuts, the locations of the main guilds, the churches, and the market squares. You find the area where the wool merchants congregate, the staple, an official marketplace controlled by the English crown, through which all wool exports must pass. It is the heart of the city's commerce, and it will become the center of your new world. You rent a small set of rooms above a bakery. The choice is deliberate. A grander apartment would attract attention. A room in a noisy inn would offer no privacy. This place is perfect. It is respectable but modest. The smell of baking bread that drifts up through the floorboards is a comforting domestic scent. A perfect piece of camouflage. The baker and his wife are a quiet, elderly couple who ask few questions. They are more interested in the steady clink of your coins than in your personal history. You pay them 3 months' rent in advance, a gesture of stability, of a man who intends to stay. You furnish your main room sparsely, a solid oak table to serve as a desk, 2 chairs, one for you and one for a hypothetical visitor, a small chest for your clothes and belongings, and, most importantly, a set of scales and weights for measuring wool. You purchase a ledger with a clean new cover, and on the first page, you write in your practiced Arnaud script, accounts for the business of Monsieur Dubois, Paris. You begin to fill the pages with fictional transactions, inventing suppliers, calculating costs, creating a paper trail of a life that does not exist. This ledger is your shield. If anyone were to search your rooms, they would find not the tools of a spy, but the mundane artifacts of a diligent, slightly boring merchant's agent. Your days fall into a rhythm, a deliberate, repetitive pattern designed to weave you into the fabric of the city. In the morning, you walk to the staple. You do not try to make deals. Not yet. You simply observe. You stand at the edge of the bustling courtyard, your arms crossed, a thoughtful expression on your face. You watch the English merchants, the powerful men of the staple, as they inspect the bales of wool. You listen to their negotiations, picking up the nuances of their accents, the specific terms of their trade. You learn who among them is fair, who is ruthless, who is in debt. You make yourself a familiar, unremarkable presence. You frequent the same small tavern for your midday meal. You order the same simple fare, a plate of stew, a piece of bread, a small cup of ale. You nod to the other regulars. You learn the art of the nod, the simple gesture of acknowledgement that builds a foundation of familiarity without the risk of conversation. You want them to think of you as Arnaud, the Frenchman who deals in wool, and nothing more. In the afternoons, you might walk along the city walls. This is not for leisure. With your merchant's gaze, you note the state of the fortifications, the number of guards on patrol, the placement of the cannons. But if anyone were to ask, you are simply taking the air, perhaps contemplating the challenges of shipping your goods across the sea. You are learning to have 2 thoughts in your mind at all times: the innocent, public thought of Arnaud, and the secret, analytical thought of the spy. You attend Mass at the main church, not out of piety, but because it is what a respectable man of your station would do. You stand in the back, your head bowed, but your eyes and ears are open. You see which merchants donate the most, their piety a display of their wealth and influence. You hear the whispers of the townsfolk, the small pieces of gossip that paint a picture of the city's inner life. The church, like the marketplace, is a theatre of information, and you are a silent member of the audience. Slowly, carefully, you begin to engage. You strike up a conversation with a low-level clerk at the staple, complaining mildly about the complexities of the English regulations. The clerk, eager to show his expertise, explains the system to you. You listen patiently, asking simple, unintelligent questions, allowing him to feel superior. You are gathering intelligence, but you are disguising it as ignorance. You speak to a wool grower from the countryside, asking him about his flock, the quality of his shearings. You use the knowledge Silas drilled into you, speaking his language, showing a genuine interest in his craft. You are not a customer yet, just a fellow professional. You are planting a seed of trust that may or may not bear fruit later. The loneliness of this existence is profound, a constant, silent companion. It is a cold, heavy weight in your chest. In the Abbey, you were alone, but you were part of a community. Here you are an island. Your every interaction is a performance. Every smile is calculated. Every question has a hidden purpose. You can never relax, never be yourself, because yourself no longer truly exists. In the evenings, you sit at your oak table, the candle flame casting a warm, lonely glow on the pages of your fake ledger. You listen to the sounds of the city dying down, the clanging of the curfew bell, the distant shout of the night watch, the fading footsteps on the cobblestones below. You are safe, you are successful. Your cover is hardening around you like a shell. Arnaud, the wool merchant, is becoming more real every day, and Thomas, the scribe, is fading, becoming a ghost, a half-remembered story from another life. You stare into the flickering flame, your mind a silent archive of names, faces, and details. You are a weapon being patiently sharpened, a secret waiting for the moment it is needed. And for now, your only mission is to wait, to watch, and to breathe in the scent of baking bread, the perfect, soothing scent of your deception. Months bleed into one another, marked not by a calendar but by the subtle shifts in the air and the light. The sharp, damp winds of autumn give way to the bone-deep chill of winter. A thin layer of frost often blankets the cobblestones in the mornings, and the sea smoke hangs heavy over the harbour. Then comes the slow, tentative thaw of spring. Through it all, your routine remains unwavering. It is your anchor, your armour. You are Arnaud, the French wool merchant. The name no longer feels like a costume. It has grown into your skin. You know the merchants of the staple by name. They know you by your quiet presence and your discerning eye for quality fleece. You have even made a few small, legitimate purchases of wool, sending them back to your fictional employer in Paris via a trusted shipping agent Silas had recommended. Every transaction is real, every ledger entry is accurate. The lie is fortified by a wall of truth. One evening, as a soft spring rain whispers against the window panes of your small apartment, a letter arrives. It is delivered by a boy who works for the shipping agent. The parchment is heavy. The seal is the familiar one of Monsieur Dubois. To the baker's wife, who sees the boy arrive, it is just more business. To you, it is a jolt, a silent alarm in the quiet routine of your existence. You thank the boy, give him a small coin, and close the door, your heart beating a steady, controlled rhythm. You do not open it immediately. That would be the act of an anxious man. You place it on your oak table. You light a fresh candle, the scrape of flint and steel a small, sharp sound in the stillness. You pour yourself a small cup of watered wine. You sit and you breathe. You are Arnaud. This is a letter from your employer. You will read it as he would, with a mind for profit and loss. Finally, you break the seal. The handwriting is the familiar, elegant script of the clerk you know is in Silas's employ. The words are mundane, professional. Monsieur Dubois expresses satisfaction with the quality of the last shipment. He discusses the fluctuating price of wool from the Cotswolds. He complains about a new toll being levied by a French lord on the road to Paris. He asks you to investigate the possibility of securing a larger quantity of fleece from a particular region known for its fine-spun wool. It is a letter like any other you have received. But you know what to look for. Silas had taught you this long ago, in a quiet lesson back in the port town. He had given you a small worn copy of a book of Psalms, the same one used in the abbey where you once worked. Memory is your greatest tool, he had said, but some things must be written. We will write them where no one will ever look. The letter from Dubois mentions a specific shipment, referenced by a number, invoice 27. It is your key. You retrieve the small prayer book from its hiding place, wrapped in a simple cloth at the bottom of your clothes chest. You turn to Psalm 27. The letter then mentions a loss of 15 shillings. You count to the 15th line of the psalm. The letter speaks of a consignment of 4 bales. You count to the 4th word in that line. The word is inimici, which means enemies. This is your confirmation. Now you read the letter again, but with new eyes. You ignore the business content. Instead, you look at the seemingly random scribbles in the margins, the small corrections in the text. You look at the first letter of every 4th word after the key phrase. Slowly, painstakingly, you extract the true message from the noise. It is a process that requires immense concentration. The same focus you once applied to copying manuscripts. The letters spell out a simple, chilling instruction. Identify garrison soldier. Vulnerable. Debt. There is no more information. No suggestions on how to proceed. No guidance. That was the training. You were not given a set of rules but a set of tools. It is up to you to use them. For the first time since arriving in Calais, you feel the cold hand of real danger. This is no longer a drill. This is not about building a cover. This is the work itself. Your mind begins to move, calmly, methodically. A garrison soldier. How does a French wool merchant interact with English soldiers? Directly, it is impossible without raising suspicion. The interactions between the occupiers and the occupied are formal, brief, and tinged with mistrust. But indirectly, a city is a network of connections. You know from your observations that the off-duty soldiers frequent a handful of taverns near the barracks. These are not the quiet establishments where you take your midday meal. They are louder, rougher places, smelling of stale ale and sweat. To suddenly start frequenting one of these taverns would be a change in your pattern, and a change is a risk. You need a reason, a plausible pretext. Your business provides the answer. You need to arrange for the transport of your wool bales from the staple to the docks. This requires labourers, carts. Such services are often arranged not in an office, but in the casual setting of a tavern. You will change your routine, but you will do so for a perfectly logical, commercial reason. The next day you begin. You choose a tavern called the Bull's Head. It is noisy and crowded. The air is thick with smoke and the sound of boisterous English voices. You enter, and you can feel the eyes of the room on you for a moment. You are a Frenchman, and you are better dressed than most of the clientele. You ignore the stares. You walk to the bar, order an ale, and find a small empty table in a corner. You sit and you watch. You do this for 3 nights in a row. You speak to no one. You simply drink your ale slowly, your gaze sweeping the room with an air of detached boredom. You are Arno, waiting to meet a man about a cart. You become part of the scenery. On the 4th night, you engage the innkeeper, a grizzled man with a cynical eye. You ask him in your slightly clumsy English if he knows a reliable man with a cart. This act establishes your purpose to anyone who might be listening. You have now laundered your presence. You belong here. With your cover established, you can begin your true work. You start to pay attention to the soldiers. Most are young, boisterous, spending their pay freely on drink and companionship. But you are not looking for them. You are looking for the opposite. You are looking for the one who is not laughing, the one whose eyes follow the dice with too much intensity, the one who drinks not for pleasure, but with a quiet desperation. After more than a week of patient observation, you find him. His name, you learn from the conversations around you, is Corporal Davies. He is not young. He is a career soldier, perhaps in his late 30s. His face weathered, his uniform neat but worn. He does not join in the loud singing or the arm wrestling contests. He sits at a small table, usually alone, and he plays cards. He plays with a quiet intensity, his knuckles white as he holds his cards, and he almost always loses. You watch him for another week. You see the pattern clearly. He starts the evening with a small stake, loses it, then borrows from a fellow soldier. He loses that too. You see the subtle shift in his demeanor as the night wears on, from hope to frustration to a quiet, simmering despair. You see the way the other soldiers begin to refuse him loans, clapping him on the back with a mixture of pity and contempt. Corporal Davies is a man drowning in slow motion. He is vulnerable. Now you have the name, but you need to confirm the depth of his vulnerability. You need to know more. You use your merchant persona again. You hire a cart driver, the man recommended by the innkeeper, for a small, legitimate job. As he works, you engage him in idle conversation. You talk about the city, the hardships of making a living. You mention casually that you have seen him at the Bull's Head. You ask about the soldiers. Are they well paid? The driver scoffs. He tells you their pay is meager and often late. He mentions that many of them are deep in debt, not just to each other, but to the city's moneylenders. You listen, nodding sympathetically. Just a curious merchant learning about his new environment. But you file away the information. Corporal Davies's problem is likely worse than just a few lost wages in a tavern. The time has come to send your report. You cannot write Corporal Davies has a gambling problem. Your communication must be as disguised as your life. You return to your rooms. You take out a fresh sheet of parchment. You are writing back to Monsieur Dubois. You will use the reverse of the code you received. You compose a business letter. You confirm receipt of his last message. You discuss the wool prices. Then you construct the key phrase. You write, regarding the transport of the 8 bales of wool you mentioned in your letter of the 19th. The key is Psalm 8, line 19. You check the prayer book. The 4th word of that line is securus, meaning safe or secure. It is the opposite of the message you received, a perfect way to signal a reply. Now, you embed the name, Davies. It is an English name, and the letters are common. You weave them into the text as the first letter of consecutive words. The quality of the fleece is good, but deliveries are very inconsistent, especially south of the river. It is subtle. It does not break the flow of the sentence. To any casual reader, it is invisible. To your handlers, it is a spotlight. You finish the letter with more mundane details. You read it over 3 times, once as a merchant, checking for commercial sense, once as a spy, checking the code, and once as a critic, looking for anything that feels unnatural or forced. It is perfect. It is boring. You fold the parchment, drip a pool of hot wax onto the seam, and press your borrowed signet ring into it. The act feels immensely significant. You have taken your first active step. You have identified a weakness in the fortress. You have taken a man's private misery and turned it into a state secret. You feel no triumph, no excitement, only a quiet, cold sense of professionalism. You are a scribe, and you have made your entry in the great invisible ledger of the war. You give the letter to the trusted shipping agent, and it disappears into the vast, unknowable machinery of the network you serve. You then return to your rooms. to the smell of baking bread, to the quiet solitude of your life as Arnaud, the wool merchant, a man who knows nothing of Corporal Davies and who is simply waiting for the price of wool to go up. The weeks that follow the sending of your letter are a study in patience. Life reverts to its deliberate, unchanging rhythm. You are Arnaud, the wool merchant, and your world is one of fleece, ledgers, and the gentle art of appearing unremarkable. The quiet tension that had sharpened your senses in the days leading up to your report slowly recedes, replaced once more by the familiar, comforting cloak of your routine. You walk the markets, you inspect wool, you make small talk with other merchants about the weather and the price of shipping. You are a rock in the stream of the city's life, solid, still, and unnoticed. You find a strange comfort in this period of waiting. It is a validation of your training. A lesser man, an amateur, would be anxious. He would look for signs, for whispers, for confirmation that his message was received. He would haunt the taverns, his eyes searching for the face of Corporal Davies, trying to gauge the effect of his invisible influence. But you were taught that the most dangerous thing a spy can possess is impatience. And so, you practice the opposite. You actively push the thought of Davies from your mind. You immerse yourself so completely in the persona of Arnaud that the spy within you becomes a dormant creature, sleeping soundly in the deepest part of your consciousness. You focus on the small sensory details of your life, the warmth of the fresh bread you buy from the baker each morning, the way the salty air catches in the back of your throat as you walk along the seawall, the satisfying heft of a good clean fleece in your hands. These are the anchors that keep you grounded in your cover story, that prevent your mind from drifting into the dangerous waters of speculation. You are living a lie, but you are living it so thoroughly, with such attention to its mundane textures, that it has become its own kind of truth. Then, one cool summer evening, the signal comes again. It arrives in the same way as before, a letter from Monsieur Dubois, delivered by the same unsuspecting boy. You perform the same ritual. You pay the boy, close the door, place the letter on the table. You do not rush. You finish the small piece of cheese and bread that is your supper. You methodically clean your plate and knife. Only then, with the placid demeanor of a merchant about to read correspondence from his employer, do you sit and break the seal. The letter is, as always, a masterpiece of misdirection. It discusses a failed venture concerning the acquisition of wool from a new supplier. It is full of phrases of disappointment and caution. The quality was poor. The price was inflated. We will not be pursuing this opportunity further. You locate the key phrase, hidden in a sentence about a rival merchant. He made his offer on the 12th day of the month. You retrieve your small prayer book, its leather cover worn smooth from handling. You turn to Psalm 12. The letter then refers to a cost of 7 livres. You count to the 7th line. You then look for the second word, as indicated by a reference to 2 shipments. The word is aduvabet, meaning he will help. The message is clear. Your identification of Davies has been approved. They will help you. Now you must find the instructions. They are not as simple as last time. This is not just a name. This is a plan of action. The code is more complex, a sequence of numbers referring to psalms, lines, and words, which you must then assemble. It takes you nearly an hour of silent, focused work, your quill scratching softly on a piece of scrap parchment as you transcribe the hidden letters. The final message is short, just 3 words. Apply financial pressure. You stare at the words, apply financial pressure. It is a cold, elegant, and brutal instruction. They are not telling you to bribe Davies. They are telling you to become the source of his misery. And then, perhaps, its solution. You are not to be his friend. You are to be his creditor. How does a French wool merchant become the creditor of an English garrison soldier? The gap between your 2 worlds seems immense. To simply approach him and offer a loan would be absurdly suspicious. You need a bridge. You need a third party, a plausible reason for your paths to cross in a financial context. You spend the next 2 days in quiet contemplation. You do not leave your rooms except for bread and water. You sit at your oak table, the city sounds a distant murmur, and you think. You trace the invisible web of the city's commerce in your mind. A soldier owes money. To whom? To other soldiers, certainly. But a man with a problem as deep as Davies's likely owes more than his comrades can lend. He owes a professional, a moneylender. Finding the city's moneylenders was not difficult. They are a necessary, if often reviled, part of any city's economy. There were several, but you learn through discreet inquiries, the kind of questions a savvy merchant would ask about lines of credit, that one man in particular, a Lombard named Niccolo, handles a great deal of the informal debt in the city, including, it was rumoured, that of many of the English soldiers. Now you have a potential bridge. But you cannot simply walk into Nicolo's office and ask to buy Corporal Davies's debt. You need a reason to be doing business with Nicolo in the first place. Once again, you turn to your cover story. Arnaud is a merchant. A merchant sometimes needs capital. He might need a short-term loan to secure a large purchase of wool before his own funds arrive from Paris. It is a perfectly normal, logical business transaction. You put your plan into motion. You approach Nicolo not as a spy, but as Arnaud. You find him in his counting house, a dark, narrow room that smells of old paper, sealing wax, and the metallic tang of coin. Nicolo is a small, neat man, his eyes sharp and intelligent. You present yourself as a French merchant, new to the city, looking to establish a line of credit. You show him your ledger. You speak of profit margins and shipping schedules. You are building a new layer of your legend, that of a prudent but ambitious businessman. Nicolo is cautious. He asks for references. You provide the name of the shipping agent, a man Silas had assured you was part of the network and would vouch for you. The next day, you return. Nicolo's demeanor has changed. He has checked your reference. He is now willing to do business. You negotiate the terms of a small, hypothetical loan. You do not actually take any money. You are simply establishing a relationship. You are now one of Nicolo's clients. Over the next few weeks, you visit the counting house several times. You discuss the markets with Nicolo. You bring him a small bottle of good French wine as a gift. You are cultivating him, just as you plan to cultivate Davies. You are making yourself a trusted, familiar presence in his world. Finally, the moment comes. During one of your conversations, you casually mention the difficulties of doing business in a garrison town. So many soldiers, you say with a sigh, and so much of their money seems to end up in taverns and at the gambling table. A flicker of interest in Nicolo's eyes. A man in my position sees a great deal of that, he says, his voice neutral. This is your opening. You lean forward slightly, lowering your voice, creating a sense of shared confidence. I have a small private concern, you begin, choosing your words with care. A relative of my employer in Paris has a son, a foolish boy, a soldier in the garrison here. He has fallen into debt, and it is causing the family great embarrassment. They have asked me to handle the matter discreetly, to resolve the boy's debts without the family's name being involved. You pause, letting the story settle. It is a perfect lie, plausible and relatable. It explains your interest in a soldier's debt without revealing any strategic motive. Of course, you continue, I would need to know the extent of the problem. I am told the boy's name is Davies, Corporal Davies. A long shot, I know, but I was wondering if, by some chance, his name has ever appeared in your books. You hold your breath. Nicolo's face is a professional mask. He shows no surprise. He simply turns and pulls a heavy, leather-bound ledger from a shelf. He opens it, running a slender finger down a long column of names. The silence in the room is absolute, broken only by the faint scratching of his fingernail on the parchment. Ah, yes, he says at last, his voice betraying no emotion. Corporal Davies, his account is with me, and it is significant. I see, you say, your own voice a perfect imitation of a concerned family friend. I have been authorized to purchase the debt. In my own name, of course. The family must not be connected to this. Nicolo looks at you, his sharp eyes assessing you. He is not a fool. He may suspect there is more to the story, but he is a businessman. A debt is a debt. Your money is as good as anyone else's. He names a price, a sum slightly less than the full amount owed, allowing him to make a quick, guaranteed profit. You do not haggle. To haggle would be to act like a merchant. You are acting as a man for whom the money is a secondary concern to discretion. You agree to his price immediately. You count out the coins, the silver and gold clinking softly on the dark wood of his desk. He takes a piece of parchment, dips his quill in ink, and with a few swift strokes, signs Corporal Davies's debt over to you. You fold the document and place it inside your tunic. It feels cold against your skin. You are now Corporal Davies's creditor. You own a piece of him. You have forged a bridge between your two worlds. A bridge built of another man's despair. You thank Nicolo for his discretion and leave the counting house, stepping back out into the bright afternoon sun. You feel no pleasure, only the quiet satisfaction of a complex task well executed. You have followed your instructions. You have applied the pressure. Now, all that is left is to wait for the man to realize the walls are closing in. The document assigning Corporal Davies's debt to you sits in your clothes chest, wrapped in the same simple cloth as your prayer book. It is a dangerous object, the only physical link between your two identities. But it is also a powerful one. You have no immediate plan to use it. The instructions were to apply pressure, not to announce yourself. The first turn of the screw is silent. For now, The pressure is simply the fact of the debt's existence, its transfer to a new, unknown owner. You know from your observations and your conversation with Niccolo that the moneylender would have sent a discreet message to Davies, informing him that his debt has been sold. The message would be simple, containing no details about the new owner, only that payments are now to be redirected. For a man like Davies, already drowning in financial anxiety, this news would be a fresh wave of panic. His debt, which was at least a known quantity, a familiar burden, has now vanished into the hands of a faceless stranger. The uncertainty would be a form of psychological torture, more potent than any direct threat. Your task now is to observe the effects of this pressure. You return to your routine at the Bull's Head Tavern. You are no longer just an anonymous merchant waiting for a cart driver. You have established that persona. Now, you are a man who occasionally enjoys a quiet ale in the corner. You sit, you watch, and you listen. The change in Corporal Davies is noticeable almost immediately. Before, he was a man wrestling with despair. Now he is a man haunted by it. He no longer plays cards. He cannot afford to. He sits with his single cup of cheap ale, making it last for hours. There is a new tension in his posture, a hunted look in his eyes. He scans the faces of everyone who enters the tavern, a flicker of fear and suspicion in his gaze. Is that him? Is that the man who now owns me? You watch this from your corner, your face a mask of placid indifference. You feel a cold, detached pity for the man. You are the architect of his misery, the ghost he is searching for in the crowded room. But pity is a luxury you cannot afford. It is a weakness, a crack in the armor of your persona. You are a craftsman, and this is your craft. You are shaping this man's reality, slowly, deliberately, turning him into a tool that your masters can use. After 2 weeks of this silent pressure, you receive your next set of instructions. The letter from Monsieur Dubois arrives as before. This time, the code is woven into a long passage lamenting a moth infestation in a batch of stored wool. The key, hidden in a reference to a specific warehouse, leads you to a passage in the Book of Job, a fitting choice for the grim business at hand. The message is, again, brutally simple. Make contact, offer relief. The time for silent pressure is over. Now you must step out of the shadows. But the approach must be perfect. It must seem like a coincidence, a stroke of luck for Davies, not a carefully orchestrated maneuver. To simply walk up to him in the tavern and say, "I own your debt," would be disastrous. It would reveal your power, your planning. You need him to come to you. You need to arrange a chance encounter, a meeting that feels organic and accidental. You decide to use the city's geography as your stage. You know Davies's routine. He leaves the barracks at a certain time. He walks a specific route to the tavern. It is a path of habit, born of years of military discipline. You will intercept him on this path. You choose your location carefully. A narrow, quiet street, away from the main thoroughfares. It is a place where two people might plausibly stop to talk without drawing attention. You need a reason to be on that street yourself. Again, your cover provides the solution. You learn that a small independent weaver has his workshop on that street. You will be Arnaud, the wool merchant, on his way to inspect a potential new source of homespun cloth. The next afternoon, you put the plan into motion. You time your walk to coincide with Davies's. As you see his familiar figure approaching from the far end of the street, you stop. You turn your attention to the facade of a building, feigning interest in its architecture, your back partially turned to him. You are just a man pausing in his walk, a common sight in any city. Davies walks closer, his head down, lost in his own world of worry. As he is about to pass you, you turn, as if startled, and you accidentally bump into him. It is a small glancing collision. "Pardon," you say in your careful, slightly accented English. "My apologies, my mind was elsewhere." Davies grunts, barely looking at you. He is about to move on. "Corporal Davies, is it not?" you ask, your voice friendly, casual. He stops. He looks at you properly for the first time. His eyes are filled with suspicion. How does this French merchant know his name? You smile, a disarming, harmless expression. "I believe I've seen you at the Bull's Head. I am Arnaud, I deal in wool." You offer a hand, he does not take it. "What do you want?" he asks, his voice rough. "Nothing at all," you say, your smile not wavering. "Forgive me, it is just, you seem troubled. As a stranger in this city, I know what it is to have worries. Sometimes a friendly face." You let the sentence hang, an open-ended offer of sympathy. He looks at you, his mind racing. "Is this him? Is this the man? He can't be sure." You look like what you say you are, a well-dressed, slightly soft French merchant. You do not look like a threat. "I have my own troubles," he says defensively. "Of course," you say, your tone gentle. "We all do. For me, it is the price of wool, the cost of shipping. For a soldier, I imagine the concerns are different. You pause, then add, as if thinking aloud. Though I suppose money is a worry that all men share, regardless of their trade. You have laid the bait. You have mentioned the word money. You watch for his reaction. A flicker of something in his eyes, a tightening of the jaw. He is hooked. I must be going, he says, but he does not move. Of course, and you say again. A pleasure to finally meet you properly. You give a small bow and turn to walk away. You take 3 steps. Wait, his voice calls out behind you. You stop and turn back, your expression one of mild, polite surprise. He struggles for a moment, the conflict playing out on his face. Pride warring with desperation. Desperation wins. You mentioned money, he says, the words tasting like ash in his mouth. Are you a man who lends money? You feign surprise. Me? Good heavens, no. I am a merchant, not a banker. My own finances are stretched thin enough as it is. You shake your head, a small, sad smile on your face. No, I am afraid I cannot help you if you are looking for a loan. I am more likely to be in need of one myself. You see the hope drain from his face, replaced by a deeper despair. This is the crucial moment. You have established that you are not a moneylender. You have separated yourself from the predatory role he fears. Now you can offer relief from a different angle. However, you say, your voice dropping to a more confidential tone, I have on occasion helped associates out of difficult situations. Business is about connections after all. Sometimes the right word to the right person can be more valuable than a purse of coin. You pause, letting the implications sink in. Your trouble, you continue. It is a matter of debt, is it not? I have heard whispers. A man named Niccolo. The colour drains from his face. The mention of the moneylender's name is a hammer blow. It confirms that his private shame is now public knowledge. I may know the man who currently holds your account, you say softly. He is a business associate of mine. A hard man, but perhaps a reasonable one. If he were to be convinced that you were a man of good character, a man who simply fell on hard times, perhaps the terms of your arrangement could be adjusted. You are not offering to pay his debt. You are offering something far more valuable. Hope. The possibility of a way out. You are positioning yourself not as his creditor, but as his potential savior, a benevolent intermediary. He stares at you speechless. He is caught in the web you have so carefully woven. He sees a lifeline, and he does not care that it was thrown by the very man who pushed him into the water. Why? He finally whispers. Why would you do this for me? You give him a sad, worldly smile. Let us just say that I know what it is to be a stranger in a strange land, and I believe that one good turn deserves another. Who knows? Perhaps one day you will be in a position to do a small favor for me. You have planted the seed, the idea of reciprocity. You have not asked for anything yet. You are simply framing your help as an investment in future goodwill. Meet me in 3 days' time, you say, taking control of the situation. Behind the old church of St. Albus, after the evening bell. We will speak more then. You do not wait for his reply. You simply nod, turn and walk away, leaving him standing alone in the narrow street. You do not look back. You know he will be there. You have taken him apart, piece by piece, and now you are beginning to put him back together, but in a shape of your own design. The pressure has been applied. Contact has been made. Relief has been offered. The trap is now set. The 3 days you wait for the meeting behind the church of St. Albus are a masterclass in self-control. You do not alter your routine in the slightest. You are still Arno, the wool merchant. You visit the staple. You make entries in your ledger. You take your evening meal in your quiet tavern. To the outside world, you are a man without a care beyond the price of fleece. But beneath this placid surface, your mind is a workshop, carefully preparing for the next most delicate stage of your operation. You know that when you meet Davies, he will be a man clinging to a single thread of hope. Your task is to become that thread. You must be everything that his life is not, calm, confident, and in control. You must be the solution to his problems, the port in his personal storm. But you must also be careful not to seem too eager, too powerful. Your persona is that of a helpful intermediary, a benevolent acquaintance, not a master puppeteer. The Church of St. Albus is a small, half-forgotten building in a quiet corner of the city, rarely used since the English conquest. Its stone is dark with age and damp, and ivy creeps up its crumbling walls. It is the perfect location for a secret conversation, a place of shadows and silence. As the evening bell tolls, its mournful clang echoing across the rooftops, you make your way to the appointed spot. You arrive a few minutes early, positioning yourself in the deep shadow of a buttress. You are not hiding, merely waiting. When Davies arrives, you want him to see you as a patient, reassuring presence. He appears a few moments later, a furtive, nervous figure, his cloak pulled tight around him. He looks more like a thief than a soldier. His eyes dart around the small, overgrown churchyard, searching the shadows. "Corporal," you say, your voice calm and low. You step out of the shadow, not suddenly, but with a slow, deliberate movement. "I am glad you came." He flinches at the sound of your voice, but relaxes slightly when he sees you. "You said you could help," he says, his voice a strained whisper. "I said I would try," you correct him gently. "I have spoken with my associate, the man who holds your debt. As I suspected, he is a man of business. He is interested only in repayment. He is not a cruel man, but he is an impatient one." You let this sink in. You are subtly reminding him of the danger he is in, reinforcing his dependency on you. "He is prepared to be lenient," you continue, "but he requires an assurance that his investment is safe. He needs to know that you are a man of value, a man with prospects." "Prospects," Davies scoffs, a bitter, hopeless sound. "I am a corporal with 30 years of service and a mountain of debt. I have no prospects." "That is where you are wrong," you say, your voice taking on a new intensity, a note of inspiration. "You have something of immense value, something that my associate and his associates are very interested in. You have access." He stares at you, uncomprehending. "Access? Access to what?" "Access to the heart of this city," you say. You are a soldier in the garrison. You walk the halls of the fortress. You hear the conversations of officers. You see the duty rosters. You know the state of the armory. You know which cannons are in good repair and which are rusted. You know which sections of the wall are well guarded and which are less so. As you speak, you watch his face. You see the dawning of understanding, followed immediately by a wave of fear. He is beginning to see the price of his salvation. You want me to be a spy," he breathes, the word itself seeming to terrify him. You shake your head, a reassuring gesture. "Spy? That is such a crude word. A dramatic word. I am not asking you to steal maps or poison a general. I am a merchant. My associates are merchants. We are men of commerce. And commerce relies on information. Information allows us to make sound investments. To know when to ship our goods and when to keep them in the warehouse. To know if the city is stable or if there is unrest on the horizon. We are simply gathering market data. You are reframing the act of treason as a simple business transaction. You are soothing his conscience with the language of the counting house. You are making the unthinkable seem mundane, almost logical. "Think of it, Corporal," you say, your voice a hypnotic, persuasive murmur. "Small things. Things that you would see or hear in the normal course of your day. How many men are sick with the winter cough? Are the new shipments of arrows from England of good quality? Is there talk of a new tax on ale? These are the things that interest my associates. Small details. Nothing that would put you in any real danger." This, of course, is a lie, but it is a necessary one. You are giving him a gentle entry into the world of espionage, starting him with tasks that seem trivial, harmless. "And in return for this information?" he asks, his voice barely audible. "In return, you say, your debt will be managed. The pressure will be lifted. My associate will be satisfied. You will be given a small stipend, enough to live comfortably. No more scraping for coins to buy an ale. No more sleepless nights." You paint a picture of the life he craves, a life free from the crushing weight of his obligations. You are selling him not just a solution to his problem, but a dream. He is silent for a long time, the ivy-covered stones of the old church his only witness. You can almost see the war being waged within him. On one side, a lifetime of loyalty, his oath to his king, his identity as an English soldier. On the other, the suffocating reality of his debt and the seductive promise of release. I can't," he says finally, but his voice lacks conviction. It is the protest of a man who wants to be convinced otherwise. "You can," you say, your voice firm but not threatening. "You are a good soldier, Davies, but your commanders have not rewarded your loyalty. They have let you founder. I am offering you a way to take control of your own life, to serve new masters who will value your contributions, masters who will reward you." You take a small, heavy purse from within your cloak. The coins within it make a soft, muffled clinking sound. "This is a gesture of good faith," you say, holding it out to him. "A sign of our seriousness. There is no obligation. Take it. Settle some of your smaller debts. Think about my offer. If you decide it is not for you, then we will part ways, and you will hear from me no more. But your debt to my associate, that will remain." You have presented him with a choice, but it is a choice between a tangible reward and a certain grinding misery. The purse in your hand is heavy with the weight of his decision. He hesitates, his eyes fixed on the leather pouch. Then, with a trembling hand, he reaches out and takes it. The moment his fingers close around the purse, you know you have won. He has taken the first step across the line. What kind of information? He stammers. You smile? A thin, professional smile. For now, something simple. In 2 days, the northern garrison is scheduled for weapons inspection. I want to know how many crossbows are deemed unfit for service. A simple number. Something you could learn by listening to the quartermaster's clerks complain. Nothing more. You have given him his first assignment. It is small, specific, and seemingly insignificant. It is designed to be easy to accomplish, to give him a taste of success, to show him how simple this can all be. Meet me here in 1 week's time with the number, you say. We will speak again then. You step back into the shadows, leaving him standing there, the purse clutched in his hand. You have done it. You have recruited your first asset. You have turned a loyal soldier of the English crown into an agent of the French one. You feel a surge of something, not triumph, but a cold, hard satisfaction. It is the feeling of a craftsman who has just completed a difficult and intricate piece of work. You walk away from the churchyard, your footsteps silent on the damp earth, melting back into the city's anonymity, leaving Corporal Davies alone with his silver, his conscience, and his new career in treason. The wheel of your operation has begun to turn slowly, silently, powered by one man's weakness and another man's quiet, patient ruthlessness.